It's our September 10th waiver wire episode. We'll get you updated on all those hitters and pitchers you should consider picking up on your rosters right now. Plus, a little bit about where we were on September 11th, 20 years ago. Beat the Shift is next. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always, Ruvain Guy. How are you, Ruvain?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I want to wish you a happy and healthy Jewish New Year. It was just the holiday Rosh Hashanah, which means New Year, and happy and healthy one to you.
Same to you and to everyone who celebrates. Happy New Year to them as well.
Sounds good. So, brief episode today, just to get you set on your waiver wire picks. And we're just going to jump right into it right now. Ruvain, who you got for this weekend to pick up with only 3 fab periods remaining?
Okay, so I'm going a little bit deeper here for people who are looking on the waiver wire and trying to find these guys, because a lot of the guys we mentioned sometimes aren't there. Lane Thomas for the Nationals. He's playing basically every day. He's batting .294 with 3 homers and 1 stolen base in the last week. He's got 4 stolen bases ready for this year, and he's only owned in 8% of CBS leagues. So if you want to take a risk on him, he's a guy who's playing every day, and that's something you got to look for. With Alex Dickerson out for the San Francisco Giants and with Austin Slater out as well with a concussion, Darren Ruff, he's getting even more time. I've mentioned him in the past. He went 6 for 18 last week with a homer. He's only 6% owned in CBS, and again, he is getting playing time. And if you want stolen bases, I hate to say it, but this is the former Met. Andres Jimenez, he's only 13% owned in CBS. He stole 3 bases in the last week and batted .263 during the course of that time as well. He's got 10 stolen bases for the year, so obviously he's going to get a whole bunch of stolen bases now in September, so it'll raise his price when it comes to March next year.
All right. A couple guys, on the Giants, you got Lamonte Wade Jr., who's playing pretty much every day. In the last month, batting a cool .276 with 4 homers, 3 stolen bases, 12 RBIs. He's batting cleanup for the first place Giants. So, I mean, run production can't get better if you're batting cleanup on one of the best teams in baseball. So, give him a look. How about also Odubel Herrera, 20% owned. Since August 1st, 6 homers, .318 batting average. He's got 12 homers, 5 stolen bases on the year, .260 on the year, and 366 at-bats. So Odubel Herrera for the Phillies trying to win a playoff spot. That's a good one. And I'll give a catcher here. He's not going to be available in 2 catcher leagues, but he might be available in 1. 30% owned Alejandro Kirk of the Toronto Blue Jays. The guy is just a professional baseball hitter. I mean, he's got in just 130 at-bats, 7 homers, 22 RBIs, batting .273, and I actually think he's better than that. I think he's more of a .270, even .280 hitter with, let's call it 15 home run power. He really should be a number 1 catcher every league. I mean, if he's going to be the starting catcher next year, he is an easy number 1 catcher. So pick him up if he's available in your league right away while he is extremely hot.
And I really like that. Lamonte Wade pick there. He's probably one of the quietest 17 home run, 6 stolen base guys, batting almost .260 for the entire season so far on the market. And if he's available, you got to grab him.
Absolutely. Well, so saves. If you're desperate for saves, Rowan Wick, only 10% owned in Chicago. The Cubs are going to play some close games on the year. They traded their whole team, but they have Schwindel, who's hitting a homer practically every other hour at this point, keeping games close and winning games. They're going to get a couple save ops. He's free right now. He's 10% owned, so if you need somebody, pick him up. Pitcher preview, Ruvain. Let's see. Anybody to pick up who's got a good start this week, or a 2-start pitcher this week, or even a future 2-start pitcher?
I don't like any of the 2-star pitchers this week, so I'm going to go with a couple single-star pitchers. First one I'm going to mention is John Lester. He's actually only 20% owned in CBS. He's slated to pitch the Mets this week either when I think it's supposed to be Wednesday, and he's a possible future two-start pitcher the following week. In the last 4 to 5 starts, he's only allowed 1 run. Yes, he doesn't strike out that many people. He strikes out maybe 3 to 4 guys a game, but he's pitching against the Mets this week and a possible two-start next week. So that's an interesting name if he's available. And another guy who we mentioned actually in our prospect episode, and that's Glenn Otto. His first start for the Rangers against the Astros, he went 5 innings with 2 hits and 7 strikeouts. And this week, he's playing against the Astros again. He's also a possible two-star pitcher, and he's only 12% owned in CBS. Now, it may be better off for people to be using these guys and or middle relievers, because if you've been using a lot of two-star pitchers recently, they can really destroy your ERA and WHIP, as a lot of my fantasy teams have noted. And it's just something to watch out for the rest of the season, because yes, you want to get those wins, but you can't be so desperate to get those wins and screw your ERA and WHIP for the entire season.
Yeah, wins, two-star pitchers are less effective these days down the stretch because pitchers aren't going deep into games. A couple of years ago, pitchers would pitch typically 6, 7 innings, and, even if it was not the best start, give you a chance to win the game. Pitchers are pitching 4 or 5 innings these days. The longer you're in, the better you have a chance to win it, and if that's not going to be there, how much is that win worth it to you? Don't just play garbage pitchers, because, again, ERA can change hands. Somebody else can blow up and pass you. Those ratio stats, they're not set. They're not, well, it's late, it's not going to affect my ratios. Things do. Even batting average in labor, I moved up a batting average spot with some good play over this week. They're not set. Don't just poo-poo and say, well, just bank the count, just get the counting stats and poo-poo the ratios. It's still up in the air. You still got a month to go, and there are more changes. I'm gonna pick for pitcher preview. Well, first of all, he's not going to be owned in many leagues. He's not going to be available in many leagues. Vladimir Gutierrez, 70% owned on CBS, so still 30% available. He's got 9 wins on the year, 4 ERA. I like his schedule coming up. He's playing at Pittsburgh, and then the following week, 2-start versus Pittsburgh versus Washington. That is an excellent schedule. So if he is available in your league, probably in a 10 to 12 mixed, you pick him up. Let's go to Eric Lauer. He's my favorite pick of the week. He's playing at Detroit, and then he's 2-start the following week against St. Louis and New York, the Mets. I think that is a fantastic schedule for an under-owned pitcher. Definitely, if you want some wins, I think that could be a good spot to get them. 2 other 2-star pitchers don't love, but just wanted to tell you about John Gant. He's been pitching okay as of late, but he has a very tough schedule. Yankees and Toronto. That's a desperate play in my mind. Points league, you could try it. And Mitch Keller. I don't love this, but versus Cincinnati and at Miami, he has been better in his last 5 starts with a 4.5 ERA. But look at his FIP over the last couple of starts, a 3 FIP. He's pitching with a 4.38 BABIP very recently. I kind of think he's getting cheated, and he's actually been pitching very, very well lately. K/9 of 9 lately. So it's not as bad as you think. And one of those starts is at Miami, which is a good start. Pirates don't win many games, so it's not a great play for a win. But if you are desperate for wins, it's a possibility. Again, I'm talking NL only and maybe 15-team leagues. Nothing shallower than that.
I also want to mention one other guy. He may be available because people may have dropped him because he was injured the prior week. But that's what's his name from? I have him right here. John Gray. John Gray. He is 59% owned in CBS. But a lot of people dropped him the week before because he was injured. He had a forearm issue, but he's pitching his last outing. He had 8 strikeouts. He's at Atlanta and at Washington, which is not that bad. If you can deal with the ERA, then it may be an issue. He's very good for strikeouts. So if you need a guy for strikeouts, he's the guy.
Yeah, if you are chasing strikeouts, if strikeouts are very much clustered in your league, if there's a very large gradient in terms of the points, he is the perfect person because he will strike out roughly 15 guys next week. It's not a whim of whether Colorado wins or not. He will get the strikeouts. He's a strikeout pitcher. So John Gray is perfect for that spot if you should need that role. Again, it's always dependent upon what you need. At this point in the year, you're not picking for value in a roto league. You're picking explicitly for the categories that you need to make gains on. That's something to note. All right, injury time. Moving. Couple of people injured, couple people coming back. Give us the lowdown.
Yep. Okay, we'll start with Jamison Tyone from the Yankees, who was placed on the IL with a right ankle injury, right ankle tendon injury. They said it was partially torn. He's wearing a boot and already received a PRP injection. All that being said, the Yankees are hopeful he can return after missing only one start. If you believe that, I probably have a bridge to sell you. Willie Adames was placed on the IL with a left quad injury. He's already hitting in the batting cage, and he said he may not be 100% recovered until the offseason. So if you have him on your bench, you may want to think about other options. We talk about Jesus Aguilar. Jesus Aguilar is one of the league leaders in RBIs who's placed on the IL with left knee inflammation. We don't know how bad it was until they say he was on the IL, because at first they called it just a sore knee, but now he is actually placed on the IL. Joe Panic and Lewin Diaz can find some extra time at first base for the Marlins. Connor Joe, a guy we mentioned in the waiver wire in the past, was placed on the IL with a right hamstring strain. He received a PRP injection already, and he's hopeful to return this year. AJ Pollock was placed on the IL also with a right hamstring strain. Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, said last week that he would hope he'd only miss 2 to 3 weeks with this grade 2 strain. Billy McKinney will actually see some extra time in the outfield with him out. Brandon Nimmo was placed on the IL with a right hamstring injury between the innings of games of a doubleheader, actually. And actually, his recovery is supposed to be ahead of schedule. He may actually be activated this week if possible. And some updates. Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw had a left forearm strain, has been out for an extended period of time. Dave Roberts said that he should be activated this week to rejoin the starting rotation. Same with Lucas Giolito. He was on the IL with a left hamstring strain. He's hopeful to come back this Tuesday. Lance Lynn, right knee inflammation, hopeful to come back this weekend. Someone who's not coming back is Zach Britton. He had Tommy John surgery, a bone chip removed. He was probably going to miss next year as well. And I'm also going to mention a couple other guys here. Mike Trout may or may not come back this year, leaning toward not. Jacob deGrom still leaning toward not coming back. And I'm also going to mention Chris Bassett because it's a good story. He's already throwing off flat ground. He had a facial fracture after getting hit in the face with a line drive. He said he would come back as soon as possible. The Athletics may be a little more cautious with him, but they may want him back for the playoff run. So you never know. He's not expected to come back this year, but you never know.
So while we have a little bit of time here, just to check on how are you doing in your leagues, Ruvain, with 3 weeks to go?
3 weeks to go. We got so stuff going on here. First of all, a couple of home leagues I'm in. I'm in second place in both of them. ERA and WHIP took a hit in one of them. Otherwise, I would have been first. I was in first last week where the teams were together. TGFBI, I was in 14th or 13th place about a month ago, but I don't give up, and I'm currently in 6th place, only a point and a half out of 5th. So I'm trying to make a good showing there. And we're together in a NFBC league, and that we've been out of basically since May. So yeah.
Yeah, that league is that league's something else. And the thing is that with that league, and one point that I do want to make to everybody here is that, we made some good picks. If you look at we had Trevor Rogers, Jose Ramirez, Ozzy Albies was fine, Walker Buehler, we hit on the right pitcher. We've hit on a lot of the right people, and there's you would think that, well, if you hit on a lot of good guys, you'll be doing well. And the truth of the matter is that what's more important than hitting on the right guys to earn you a very big return on those guys, what's almost more important is not to hit landmines, is to have more picks on your team that are right than wrong, rather than the gigantic leaps. Obviously, if you hit on the best guys, you're in great shape. But I think it's more important, and I of course will research this and show this mathematically, that the frequency is more important. The getting it right directionally is more important than just getting a few guys magnitude-wise. Do you agree with this, first of all?
Yes, I 100% agree, because it's all based on your philosophy. If you're doing what you're doing is right, you'll pick the right guys. Whether they get hurt, there are some things you just cannot control. Like, to give you an example, in my TGFBI league, which I'm in 6th place right now, I picked Marcelo Zuno with my 3rd pick. How am I supposed to know he's supposed to be out for the entire year? How am I supposed to know Keston Hiura is not going to hit? Otherwise, my first rounds have been all if you keep it the process, it's the way it's supposed to be. You had Garrett Cole, and Bo Bichette. Blake Snell has turned it around late. Nick Castellanos late. Paul Goldschmidt, who's been hitting. Will Smith. I mean, these are all guys who have been doing well. And later in the draft, I had Chris Bassett. I had Kyle Seager. I had Giovanni Gallegos. I even had Rondo Franco sitting on my bench. So if you look at your draft and how you did in March and February when you made those picks, look at the team you started with. Look what you did. See if your process was right. If your process was right, there's really nothing to change for next year. It's just sticking with the process and being confident in it.
Yeah, I mean, in labor, that the mixed auction labor in second place, and just a point and a half out of first, competing with the great Ron Chandler, and Jeff Zimmerman is right in the thick of things as well. We really hit on so many great things. I mean, Jose Abreu was positive. It was good return. Eduardo Escobar, great. Kyle Seager, 34 homers. Mark Canha, look at our outfield. Almost all cheap guys, but they all were decent. Mark Canha, Randall Grichuk, Raymond Tapia, Alex Verdugo, Franmil Reyes. These are guys who are just earning a little bit of a profit, but we didn't lose anything. Like, those guys have been on that. My outfield here, that's the outfield that was drafted. Right? I didn't have to go through cycles and cycles. They have a great return. And I don't have any superstars in the team, really. I also have Bryce Harper. He was an undervalued guy. Maybe second-round prices should have been a first-round player. But it's not about hitting on the oh my god players. It's just making sure that you don't bottom out. It's where you hit and just have a positive return everywhere. Slow and steady wins the race, and that's really the point I'm making here. As far as other leagues I'm in, Tout Wars, I am in the semifinals, competing this week. It's a two-week week against Clay Link. Clay Link is tricky, so good luck. Hey, I need some luck here to beat him. He's pretty good. And the other bracket is Frank Stamfel and Ralph Lifshitz. Hopefully, if I win, I'll be facing one of those guys. And in my TGFBI league, back in first. I think I'm about 30th overall. So I think overall successful season. Doing pretty well actually in most of the leagues, other than that horrendous NFBC league, which we hit on players. Just there's a lot of holes on the team, and the plugs didn't work. We filled them with pitchers that just didn't work, and we filled them with hitters that just didn't work. It's like a boat that's sinking, and you've got great parts of the boat, but you can't fill the plugs. You got the wrong pieces to fit in, and all the water is coming out of the water. I'd rather have, it's not such a great boat, but the plugs are fitting very nicely, and it's sturdier. Does that analogy make sense?
It does. It really does. I think the problem that we had, and I had this problem last year in the shortened season also, we had too many players on one team. And if one team went through COVID, like the Red Sox are going through now, we had a lot of players who happened to be on the Mets. It just happened to be. Yes, we're Met fans, but the prices at the auction were right. And we just picked these guys, and it just happened that there was a rash of injuries, and they just never got going. And it's so hard to catch up if you fall behind so early. Once you fall behind early, it is very hard to catch up. So you're not supposed to give up. Like, I haven't given up in my TGFBI, even though I lost a whole bunch of players there, and I'm still fighting. I'm still in fifth place. I'm going to make it respectable. But it just goes to show that you can make the same mistakes year in, year out and not notice it. Like, we had too many Cardinals in last year. This year we had too many Mets. How do you fix that? You don't. The market really dictated how we're going to make our picks, who we're going to take. So it's hard to do that, but you have to keep it in the back of your mind when you do it next year and the year after, not to try to bunch so many players from one team, because if a good team does very well, great, you're going to have a great season. But if the team bombs, you're going to have a big problem.
It's hard to do that, though, because you're picking, you have values for each player, and there's other risks that are involved, and team roster construction that's involved. And to me, the last tiebreaker is, maybe I shouldn't have them from the same team because of maybe COVID and or rainouts, and they're all together. So to me, it's just something not that it's too hard to really take control of. Maybe in the 60-game season, we should have been a little bit more conscious, but I don't know. For me, I'm going to avoid thinking about that because there's just too many other things that are of higher importance to think of.
But if it happens in back-to-back years, it's hard not to think about it, though.
Um,
That's the
yeah,
problem.
I think we were beat, but specifically this year by one specific thing. But it's process. Sure, it happened to us, and the Mets had a lot of rainouts and injuries, but I don't know. I'm not there yet to really change my thinking on being more conscious of that. For now, let's see
Okay.
how it goes. You know.
Oh well, see, this is how a team works. When you have two people on a team, when you have two people managing a team, you can discuss this. You can decide what you're going to do next year and how you can tweak it and go forward. This is a great debate that we have during the course of the season. How we're going to go through this, how we balance the team. And if you have a team where you're working with someone, a co-manager, this is the best way to talk things out because sometimes having one person by themselves, it's very hard to talk this out.
Sure. I also think that, we do, 7, 8 leagues or whatever we're in. I do think, though, it's hard to win all 8 of them. And just because of the random process risk that goes on, you're not, you're going to make some mistake or you're not getting the exact same players in every league. So in 6 leagues, maybe they hit well, but I don't know, the 2 other leagues that you tried something else or the price was good on some other player and they randomly didn't work out. That's what happens. I mean, you don't expect to win every single league. You expect, though, to win more than not. The idea is to win more than not. So, if we're having a great season in 6 out of 7 leagues and the one other league we're in 13th place, that happens. I think that's part of the normal winning. Right? That's part of the normal thing. It's one thing if
It
we
is.
were. Yeah.
It is, and next year may be different because they may not have the 7 inning doubleheaders. Players will be playing full games again. You may have a full-time DH in the National League. You may not have a starting second runner on second base to start extra innings. So there may be a lot of differences that play into next year as well.
Yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, one point. Yeah, the one point of why the Mets hurt us so much is when aside from a lot of the injuries, when they had so many rainouts, and you go from 9 innings to 7 innings, that's 4 innings every 2 games, right? You're losing 2 innings a game, and that happened quite a bit for the Mets. You add up the math of that, you're losing, a full 2 weeks of games from these players, right? If you're missing that many games from rainout
Counting
and
stats.
changing games, yeah, so, 10 rainouts, that's 20 games of doubleheaders. You're losing 20 times, 2 innings a game. That's 40 innings. I mean, that's like a week's worth of games already there. So it's
Not that we're making excuses or anything, but yeah.
yeah, but I'm sort of alluding to what the issue was for the Mets this year, in a lot of things they do. But all right, that's what it is. Any other thoughts before we wrap up this early September waiver wire show?
Yeah, I think that people should watch the September 11th game tomorrow at Citi Field when the Mets play the Yankees because they're going to have a lot of the players from September who played in September 2001, both for the Mets and the Yankees. It's going to be very emotional, and I still remember listening to that first game back when Piazza hit the home run. I remember listening to it on the radio, and it was one of the most emotional things I've ever heard.
Yeah. Do you remember where you were during 9/11? By the way.
Yes, I was actually in college at the time, and I remember seeing ash fall from the sky. It was very eerie looking. But yeah, it's something you'll never forget. It's like when people say they remember when Kennedy was assassinated. I remember where I was for 9/11. I remember where I was when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup, their only Stanley Cup. So there are certain things that you always remember where you are when something happened.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I was also in college. I was I think you were in Brooklyn. I was over in Queens, and on Tuesdays that year it happened to be I didn't have any classes until 2 o'clock. So I remember I don't know turning on the TV and I think I was just watching some I don't know I think Jerry Springer. I used to put it on sometimes back then while it was still fun. And I had one of those old, consoles with the antenna up to the sky, and all of a sudden there was just white fuzz when I put on the TV, and I remembered, I don't know why, but a few years back, I remembered the other time that there was some fuzz on Channel 11 was when there was a problem at the World Trade Center when there was the threat of the bombing back in the 90s. And the only station that worked was Channel 2 CBS in New York because they broadcasted off the top of the Empire State Building while all the other stations broadcasted off the World Trade Center. And I remember flipping 11 to Channel 9 to Channel 7 and Fuzz, And I don't know why I even thought this, but I said, well, there's either something wrong with my TV, or God forbid, if I turn on channel 2 and it's working, there's a problem at the World Trade Center. And I cannot tell you that feeling when I was thinking this and I turn the channel to 2 and I just see, smoke and images of what the heck happened to the city and to the building. And I just fell on my face there. That, oh my God, that's really what happened. That was a scary time. I mean, it was just news 24 hours a day for the next 2 weeks, and you're glued to your TVs. That was just a horrible time. I'm definitely old enough to remember that back in college. It was terrible. And I went to Queens College, and you can see the smoke for the next week. We had class the next day. You could see the smoke coming out where the World Trade Center is from where I was in Queens College. It was frightful. Wow.
Same thing with me. I was in Brooklyn College. I actually saw when the towers were on fire still. I distinctly looking out the window and being able to see that, and that was a freaky thing. But then on the flip side, when the Yankees were in the World Series and President Bush II actually threw out a first pitch and he threw a strike and that crowd went nuts and everyone's chanting USA, 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 that's the complete opposite of with this feeling we had on September 11th.
Yeah, and you probably remember also a couple weeks after when there was a plane crash in the Bell Harbor area, that everyone was freaking out.
Yeah, it landed about 15 blocks from my house. So yes, I do remember that very well.
Yeah, and oddly enough, that corner, my father actually lived in that corner where that plane hit, and all 3 out of the 4 corners were destroyed. In that plane crash. The one house from that corner that actually still remained was the house that my father lived in. So that was like, oh my God, wow. All right, anyways, enough reminiscing about September 11th. Again, 20th anniversary coming up tomorrow. And I want to wish everybody safe. God bless America. God bless the USA. And thank God we're here talking about fun stuff in baseball 20 years later. It's a little bit different time, and hopefully safe times in America and peace around the world.
And baseball helped heal. And baseball helped heal.
Yeah, no, it did. It did. I remember that game also with Piazza hitting that homer. That was incredible. It really was. And the Mets made a run that year for the playoff. They came short, but I remember they were wearing all the hats from the fire department and police department all throughout the rest of the summer, and yeah.
Yep, I remember.
All right. Well, with that, anyways, hope you guys do well in the rest of your fantasy leagues next couple of weeks. Next week, we'll also have a brief episode to give you the waiver wire picks, and then we'll have a couple episodes after recapping the year, talk about what strategies went right, went wrong, what we can improve in, just a whole summation of the year, but from a strategy perspective, as we do on this show. Before we go, Ruvain, why don't you just tell everybody where they can see your stuff, read you, and all things Ruvain Guy.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where I tweet out injury updates as often as possible. Who's next up, how long the player will be out for, if they'll be out for the rest of the season at this point. And also, I have my weekly article coming out tomorrow, which is Saturday, on Rotoballer, which discusses all the injuries I mentioned, plus a lot more.
All right, and I'm Ariel Cohen. You can read my stuff over at Fangraphs, Rotoballer, Sportsline, and you can follow me on Twitter at ATCNY, and of course you can listen to me every week on this show, the Beat the Shift podcast. I'll be at First Pitch Arizona. That's a great time. I've never been to the Arizona one. I've been to the Florida one, but do encourage you guys if you want to check it out. It's a great weekend worth of talking with fantasy experts and getting a lowdown on the 2022 season. Check it out. I mean, I haven't been many places since COVID, so I'm looking forward to that trip. That's coming up in just a few short weeks in early to mid-October. All right, once again, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.